Yeah. Yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dynasty Gambit, part of the Going for Two live network. We're available on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook. I think Jeff gave a kick at Kick, that platform as well. So I believe we're on there to kickstart that. I can kick through these jokes a bunch, but let's kick that idea out. And of course, we're on Twitter, but we can't see your Twitter comments if you do comment under the videos. So head over to the Going for Two Live YouTube page to interact with us if you so choose to. Glad that Gator J, you chose to appear. I would say submerge, but the opposite. And, Emerge, yes. But yeah,
I am up
Gator.
from the swamp.
Glad to have you, Gator.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm glad to be back. I know we're getting back into regular season. Thank God work is settled down a little bit in the heat. I know Eric will talk about the heat here in a minute, but it's been hot here in South Georgia as well. And getting the work done that I do with satellites is not fun when it's 95 plus out, standing on top of a solid white roof. I've lost about 65 pounds and I only weigh 165 pounds.
Congratulations. I think. Although, don't try to be Devon A-Chain, I suppose.
No, right. Anybody looking for weight, I know a job for you.
Well, you know what? I think that's what separates the pros from the Joes. But guess what? Even if you are just a regular Joe, you could be with the pros on the Pros with Joes Charity League, and the founder and creator and organizer, CEO, CBC. COO, see all the words I could say this of Pros with Joe's Charity is Eric Romov. So Eric, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. For the uninitiated, CBC is my role at Pros with Joe's, which is chief button clicker. Get everyone together and do a lot of button clicking this time of year so that we can raise some money for a variety of different charities. This is our fourth season of Pros with Joe's. We are 56 teams deep, and every one of our teams is a pair of co-managers, a fantasy pro and industry expert from really just about every website, platform, radio station, TV station out there, and a Joe, an everyday player who donated to that pro's charity of choice in order to win their way into the league. So all told, it's 112 people. We are entirely positionless. We have a quarterback spot and then a whole heap of flex spots. And it ends up being a ton of fun, right? Where there's a lot of smack talking in the group chat already. We all pile into a Zoom to do a live draft together. It ends up being a really cool experience for everyone that participates. And for the Joes, it's an opportunity to kind of ride shotgun and be involved in the day-to-day management of a fantasy team, along with an expert that they know and trust. So proswithjoes.com is our website. That's where you can get registered. It's where you can see all 56 of our pros and their fantastic charities. Pros with Joes on Twitter is where you can see all of those laid out individually and learn a bit more about the league.
I got a quick question for you, Eric. So you, as a fan, you're donating whatever the dollar, I believe it's $1 each gets you into a drawing to get chosen or raffled or whatever for that. So when do the Joes find out if they're going to be with that pro? And then the second question to that is, can a Joe donate to multiple pros?
Yeah. So your characterization up front was correct. Every dollar that you donate is equivalent to an entry into a drawing. So all 56 of our pros are essentially the grand prize in their own sweepstakes. The more that you donate, the more entries that you get. We will draw all of our winners once fundraising closes, which is at 11:59 p.m. this Sunday. So we got about 3 days or so to get in there. And to your second question, yes, you can absolutely donate to as many pros and causes as you like. One of our friends, Danielle and Justin, donated $2 to every cause last year, and they each actually won their way in. So,
Nice.
there are certainly some substantial donations that we've seen come across, but very literally, not only does every dollar count for these organizations, but also a single dollar can get you into the mix and win your way into the tournament.
And every dollar goes to a great charity of a pro's choice.
Yeah, every pro gets to select their specific charity. So they're all playing for something that is important to them. Over the years, we've been able to hear their testimony and learn about, why this cause is important to them or why they are raising for it. So it's cool to, learn a little bit more about these people outside of their, fantasy pontificating. But, also, we get to send out money to a variety of different causes, right? We usually have a little bit of overlap every year. This year, we've got 56 pros participating. We've got 49 charities that are being supported. So, really any cause that's important to you is very likely represented on that donor center as well.
That's awesome.
And the one thing I will say is, compliment the Pros with Joe's website, as you've already plugged it, just how everything is laid out. All the charities are there, so people can get it. Like if people aren't necessarily sure what expert they want to be assigned with, maybe they prefer to donate to certain charities. You can go by that way. You can see which charities have like the amounts donated so far. So if you want to like cherry pick those that haven't like had too many donations and you want to like maybe more easily get your way in, especially towards the end, that could also be work as a strategy. So the game theory strategy part, we love that in fantasy. This is even before that, to get into the fantasy leagues, you can do that. And so anyone who loves game theory and strategy, that's fun. And then of course it's all for charity, great causes. Right.
Yeah. I mean, very, very literally, I get messages every single year that, someone saw it, they're excited to participate, but they're going to wait until the last day of fundraising so they can more strategically place their dollar and try to win their way in. Right. And at least a bit of inside information for Dynasty Gambit listeners. Usually on that last day, we'll bump the fundraisers that have the lowest donations to the top of the page. So as you're scrolling there, the ones that you see first are the ones that statistically you'll have the best chance of winning your way in through.
Have you ever had it where there was a pro out there and then just a pro just kind of randomly throwing a dollar here, a dollar there, so there ended up being two pros on one team?
Oh, quite often. And actually, none other than our own Kyle Senra last year was paired up with Jay Felicio. Probably my favorite story is last year, Joe Bond of Fantasy Six Pack was the winning Joe and in one of our pairings. So we had a pro named Joey, it was Joey Wright, paired up with a Joe named Joe. And I just don't know if we're going to be able to top that. But yes, the double pro pairing does happen quite frequently.
Yeah, that would be. Thank God they didn't win.
Yeah. Oh, Jay and I know we were awful. We didn't take enough running backs. We didn't even make the playoffs. We could have drafted better, I think.
No, I would just hate to hear it from Joey Wright.
Oh, those two.
And Joe Bond that they won, the pros and Joes, and it's like, of course you won pros with Joes because you're Joes,
right? Well, they were both pros named Joe, and one of the Joes was also named Joe. Who was a pro.
They each have their own show.
It's very like Dr. Seussian, right? Like
tongue twisting, yes.
Pros named Joes playing with Joes who are pros named Joe.
See, and going 0 RB.
Yeah.
But yes. Well, this dude's a pro, Jamie Perot.
Hey, Jamie.
Yeah, that's not how you pronounce his name. It's wrong. I messed it up on purpose. But yeah, Jamie's here, and apparently he missed Gator. So
everybody misses.
We were missed.
Gator.
I mean, hell, I missed Gators back when they were good. It's been a while. By the way,
you mean the Florida team, right? Yeah.
By the way,
wait. Oh my God, was Anthony Richardson not good?
Well, he was good, but the rest of the team was horrible. But the Gator Netflix series is out, and I have watched the first episode and a half. It is absolutely phenomenal.
Oh.
I mean, listen, we look at like Urban Meyer as an NFL coach, knowing that he came from Florida, knowing he came from Ohio State, great coach in the college ranks.
Literally an urban legend.
Yeah, goes to Jacksonville. And just I don't know what happens. Implodes.
Became another different time of urban legend.
But it's kind of like you look at the series, the quarterback that Netflix had, right? And everybody, the first thing that as soon as that series comes out, everybody is like, "Oh my God, I now have love for Kirk Cousins." That's kind of the way I feel about this series with Urban Meyer, because I'm like, I get it now. It's more of that. You can't take the college coaching philosophy to the NFL. It just doesn't work with getting players that are getting paid. And I think that may be some of the issue we're going to have with the NIL. We'll see. But what he brought to Florida was a mindset. And that's what the first episode and a half or so that is all about him building a mindset. And I think there's where his downfall was going into Jacksonville, thinking he's going to tear this team down and build a mindset, because going into Florida, you're like, or, going into college as a new head coach, you're like, I've got to make men out of these kids. Some of them are going to leave. Some are going to quit. I want to find out who's going to stay. Well, ain't nobody quitting in the NFL because they're getting paid to do it. So you can't send them away. And I think that was some of where he lost everything, but it gave me a new respect for him as a coach at the college ranks.
Oh, golly. You mentioned Kirk Cousins in the quarterback series. Oh, golly.
Well, I mean, it was a great series, too.
I enjoy it so much.
I can't wait for next week with Joe Burrow.
My wife and I have 2 episodes left. So,
yeah. Oh, wow. Oh, see, I binge watched that. It took me like a day and a half, and I was done. I watched the whole thing. It was great.
Oh, okay. I was actually super interested to get like Marcus Mariota's perspective, everything that happened at the end of the season, and you got a good perspective on that. So, not that we want to plug a big fancy network in their show, but yeah, we want to talk about Pros with Joes. That's what this is all about today.
Yes.
Of course.
So what's the next question there, Kyle? I know you got more questions for Eric.
Oh, that's the thing. I was going to ask Eric, was there anything we haven't talked about yet with Pros with Joes?
No, I think that really covers it. I will take any opportunity to say proswithjoes.com and at proswithjoes on Twitter. That's where you can find all of our information, everyone that's participating, all the different causes they're playing for. And again, we're fundraising through the end of the night on Sunday. So a few days left, ton of different causes. Like I mentioned, if you check out the website and the donor center on Sunday morning, you'll see the quote unquote most winnable drawings listed at the top.
And then when are people going to find out when they or who they're playing with, which ones they won, and then when are you drafting again?
So we're going to start notifying winners immediately after closing fundraising. Our drafts start as early as next Wednesday. They are Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Tuesday of the following week. And we are going to notify winners who were in that first draft first, and then the second draft and the third draft. So the draft date and time is selected by your pro. That's how we ultimately come up with our conferences. So kind of luck of the draw, whichever pro you end up winning with, you're riding sidecar with them for the draft time they already selected, but almost immediately, right? Just about everybody for that Wednesday draft will be notified very early Monday morning, and we'll just kind of work our way down the list. So by the beginning or midpoint of next week, all 56 of our winners will be notified and paired up.
So what I just got out of that is when you wake up Monday morning, you need to be checking your emails.
Yeah.
And your bosses would want you to do that anyway.
I'm super lame. And like, I do things with this charity league that just kind of make me giggle. Somebody in the very first season referenced getting a golden ticket, like in Willy Wonka. And so now whenever we notify winners, like we send them a little golden ticket that says save one. And I picture little Charlie running through the streets back to his grandparents' house, and it makes me smile. Which
that's all four of his grandparents. All four of his grandparents are laying in the same bed. That's what you should do.
That giant bed. Yes. What a weird setup.
Well, yeah, because it's not like that's the strangest part of that movie.
Well, no, that's
right.
Is the strangest part of the movie. I mean,
it's not the chocolatier luring kids into his factory and slowly killing them, right?
I mean, they all made it out alive. Just forever deformed and altered psychologically. for all of existence.
Yeah.
I still love the blueberry.
Yeah. Augustus Gloop.
Yeah, I'm wearing a blue shirt, so
I don't.
you're wearing all blue, and of course you are. That's your typical Gator setup.
Absolutely.
Hero and a half shell or anything.
I need more orange in my life for sure.
But yes, so I guess with the draft times, having the pros selected, you're very pro. Oh no, we're getting back to this again.
Here we go again.
Yeah. What's Jamie saying? There's a new Wonka movie coming out, and it's a prequel.
Yeah.
That sounds sweet, I suppose.
Here we go.
Hey. It all puns aside about that sounding sweet. I was actually kind of it seems very like syrupy sweet, feel good kind of story, the origin of of Wonka himself. I was kind of hoping it would be a little bit of a darker take on the Chocolate Factory story, but I guess I'll have to wait for someone else to reimagine that.
For some reason, I'm always waiting for a Beetlejuice origin story. I'm surprised they haven't never done that one yet.
I think they're doing a reboot, aren't they?
Oh, of course they are.
Well, I mean, Eric, I think you just came up with a great idea. You just got to start writing the script now.
It's funny because it seems like they reboot everything except for those 90s kids. Reboot.
Yeah,
right. Hasn't got a reboot yet because that was awesome.
There's a couple of shows that I would like to see a reboot, not reboot, but an origin story of. And Wonka is I don't know if I want to see that, but I do want to see like a darker side of it, because there are if you pay attention, there's a lot of dark in that show, in that movie. Didn't they come out with like a series for like a 1 year, like a Willy Wonka series, or was there another?
There was a Johnny Depp Willy Wonka movie a few years ago.
Okay, that's what it was.
That was just a strict reboot. It wasn't a prequel or anything.
Okay,
or a sequel.
Yeah, it stayed. At least as I recall, it stayed pretty true to form with the original Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie, right? But I'm with you, Jay. Like the the confines and everything that was happening inside that chocolate factory are clearly the imaginings of a madman, right? And it's like I want to know like what pushed him over the edge, and what was the R&D process and the failed attempts that led to eventually what he had in place, right? I think that would be
made a chocolate that
cool
was
angle on
a lot more poisonous than he thought, and like really altered his mind and made it like forever changed.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he realized, okay, that's not the one we're gonna give to kids.
Yeah, he was a pioneer on mushroom chocolate, and it just reset his wiring a little bit.
It's crazy.
Mushroom peanut butter.
What's that movie? That movie is what, 35, 45 years old now?
I mean,
was that 70? Was it 78, 79 when that movie was came out, or was it 80?
Not the type of research I thought I'd be doing. I was thinking like player or something.
Where's research at? Good Lord. But yes, I mean that movie is almost as old as I am. And it's crazy because I can remember a lot of that movie, and it's like, holy crap. I think the first time I saw it I was 10 years old.
Yeah. Okay, so the book came out in 1964.
Okay.
Looks like the film came out in 71.
Wow. Okay, so the film is actually older than I am. Wow. That film's what, 50 years old?
52 years old. But still, that's not nearly as long as it's been since the Lions last won an NFL title.
Wow.
I'm for now just going to keep ripping on them forever, even if it has nothing to do with the topic. 1957 for those that care to know. Jailhouse Rock was the #1 song in the States the last time the Lions were NFL champions.
And then let's look up what a gallon of gas cost back then. Do all of the reminiscing talk.
I guess the Ford family owned the team, so they had money because they would have had cars by then. I think that's how history worked.
Yeah.
Not gonna flood you with all this mud, folks. We're gonna get to. Oh wait, we're talking about trash. Never mind. After, of course, again, we wanted to give Eric his time to shine with Pros with Joes at Pros with Joes, proswithjoes.com. And we can say the words. I feel like we're just gonna go be saying like random sentences, and then like straightly in the middle, we'll just like cut it off and out of nowhere abruptly say things like, I can't think of what I would say. Oh, proswithjoes.com.
There we go.
Yeah, that you need to put that in the private chat. Like every time you put a number in the private chat, you got to say proswithjoes.com.
I love it.
And this is a very good, beautiful day, proswithjoes.com.
Yes.
Have
Right.
you seen the latest news of this NFL preseason game? There's a certain player, and his name is proswithjoes.com. We can go on forever.
This.
But yes,
Anthony Richardson just threw a proswithjoes.com touchdown. Something along those lines, right?
That
he
is
really?
bonus points for the charity, right?
Yes.
That specific type of touchdown.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anthony Richardson was our very first NIL athlete.
Nice.
I'll get some exposure for proswithjoes.com.
Right.
Leave it to a Gator. You know, we're good that way.
Keep chomping on the go proswithjoes.com ad. But you know what, though? There actually is. We legit have an actual ad. Well, no, that's a legit ad, too. But we also have the Underdog Fantasy. And no, you cannot get Underdog Fantasy at proswithjoes.com, although still suggest you go to that website. There you go. Gator's so generous.
Cut me off. Don't cut Eric off. Jesus, Lord have mercy. We need that beautiful face on this screen.
Gator's clearly the more compassionate one. I'm just like, give us money with this ad. Underdog Fantasy. You can use the promo code GF2, like it says on the screen, or the hat, or the shirt. Walk-in plug today. Shocker, right? But yes, promo code GF2 or scan the QR code. And this is if you have not yet signed up for Underdog. If you do so with one of our special codes, Underdog will double your deposit match, your initial deposit, up to $100. So if you sign up for Underdog, put in the promo code GF2, deposit in $100, you'll have an extra $100, so a total of $200 to use on best ball drafts, which that time of year is coming to a close in terms of those best ball draft contests. So be sure to get in there now. If you miss out, though, you'll also still be able to use those funds on NFL games, predicting higher over on game totals or player stats. There's tons of great games that can be played on Underdog Fantasy. So again, use the promo code GF2, scan the QR code on screen, and sign up today. Gator, I know you just chop up those best ball drafts, right? Like
Yeah, somebody asked me the other day how many I was in. I was like, I can't even count that high. I'm not going to try to count that high. Every time somebody sends me a link, I join it. I don't even know how much money I've got invested in best ball right now.
But more best ball drafts than a Gator actually has teeth.
Yes. Okay. Great. That's a great. Yes. That's awesome. I'm going to use that from now on. When somebody asks me, it's going to be more than Gators have teeth. That's what I'm going to use.
Yeah, I can put those fantasy in frames and frame it that way for you.
You know, honestly, I don't even jump in those drafts. I'm just hosting that one. So I don't even jump in those drafts. And so if all the
true, because every time I watch an episode, I'm like, which one's Gator's team? I'm trying to look on the screen.
Yeah, I'm not in them.
I always forget to listen when you bring up his team, and now I see why.
Yeah, I'm not even doing those. I think right now, I think I did 12 or 15 prior to the draft. And then I've probably done another 150 between the draft and now. And everything from the $3 ones to the Best Ball Mania. So yeah, there's a lot of investment in there. I've learned a lot with best ball on how to diversify your teams. And I'm starting to try to do that in both my redraft and dynasty teams as well, because, well, I mean, a degenerate only has, if you can't call yourself a degenerate until you have about 25 teams combined, dynasty and redraft, in my opinion.
Oh, but darn, I just missed out. I had 24 last year and I only had 20 this year. So
yeah. So, I mean, you're just the common folks. You're just common folks. No,
I may as well just do one draft at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm trying to diversify, and I've gotten a lot of what I'm doing with my normal, with my redraft and my dynasty, with what I've done in best ball, and learning how to diversify more in the draft. It's harder to do, of course, if you already have the teams, right? Because now you're having to make trades, or having to pick up off the waiver wire. So it's a lot easier to do when you draft, the initial draft, to diversify your teams across the board. You want exposure to everybody. And you want exposure to high-powered offenses, whether that's a Rashid Rice because he's on KC, or whether that's if you believe in another rookie in Dalton Kincaid, which I think everybody should be, but you don't want to be overexposed either. And I think that's where some of us dynasty players are faulting right now. Is we
I
get
try and keep it
overexposed.
50%, especially specifically for like dynasty. Like I think
but as a
one player I've got.
As a dynasty player, we get overexposed because not only we fall in love with them, but because they want us something. Right. And then at that point, we're like, oh, well, this guy's just going to do it again. And it just doesn't happen. I think there's one person that you can honestly say that about to this point, and that's Travis Kelce. And that's the only person.
But even then, like Travis Kelce in 2021 didn't necessarily like give you value off what he gave you either. So he doesn't even necessarily do that every year. I think that was the year Mark Andrews finished as tight end one. So for the most part, Kelce does that, but he doesn't always do it. Eric, do you do any underdog best ball drafting?
I do. I had the exact inverse circumstance from what Jay laid out a moment ago. All throughout, I mean, really the gap of time between the Super Bowl and the draft, maybe like a month after the draft, I was on an insane pace for best ball. Right now, I've got 74 best ball teams drafted. Probably 55 of them were in that pre-draft window. And then I told myself I had to slow down. And really what happened is started to ramp up more content, more college basketball work, started getting stuff.
I just set up proswithjoes.com for this year as well.
Yeah, exactly. So there was a point where I was pacing to have an absolutely ridiculous number of best ball teams out there, but by hook or by crook, other things got in my way and kept me at a more modest mid-70s figure.
Do you feel like you got with the drafts prior to the NFL? Do you feel like you looking at them now? Do you feel like you got value?
Oh, absolutely, right? Because like specifically with like Best Ball Mania, these giant tournament type of formats, you have to shoot for upside, and very much so. One of the best ways to realize that upside is by rostering rookies, right? They obviously carry a fair amount of risk, and if you're a DGen like me and you draft them before they have an NFL team, they carry a fair amount of uncertainty, right? And so that routinely pushes them down the board. So you can find yourself with guys that are now being taken in the 4th, 5th, 6th round of best ball drafts today, well into the double-digit rounds, right? And, ultimately, kind of like you mentioned earlier, best ball has showed you how to manage your exposures. I don't really care if, 5, 10, 12% of my portfolio of best ball teams are cooked because I drafted someone that ended up in a terrible situation. Thank you, Israel Abanikanda. If it means that I was able to get as my, wide receiver 9, someone like Rashee Rice or someone like Jordan Addison or Zay Flowers, right? So it's very much so a trade-off. It feels weird to know that on a certain subset of these lineups, you're literally just lighting money on fire. But with the ones where you hit, you have you're much more in reach of that 99.9th percentile outcome that you need in order to take down one of these large field tournaments.
Well, I can't play underdog because we're talking stash or trash, and I would categorize the Ontario government, and especially its current regime, as completely trash. So yeah, thank you, gambling laws. I guess that brings us to our stash and trash segment. I was gonna let the guests go first, but then the guests went and they said a very key name that I know Jay wants to talk about. So maybe this is a situation we could talk about: stash or trash. Every Jets running back.
Yes.
We can start, I guess, what I would consider to be the bottom. And Jay, go ahead with which. I'm not saying that about the screen. I'm saying that more about the player.
Right. Well, I mean, or both. It's fine.
Yeah.
I accept that. You brought up Izzy a minute ago, and I have him as my trash when it comes to Dynasty for the simple fact of, excuse me. The running back shelf life is not long in the NFL. That's number one. But then you look at that running back room, and you have now Dalvin Cook. You still have Breece Hall. You have, Michael Carter. You have Izzy, you have 17 other running backs in that.
Donovan Knight, Jonathan Taylor's going to get traded to the Jets.
Stop it already. Can we get an offensive lineman on the Jets? Because they have no offensive lineman right now.
Not David Bakhtiari. He is not being traded to the Jets.
Right.
The problem with having Izzy is, again, the shelf life that the running backs have. If you have a dynasty team and you have a taxi squad, you don't want a running back on your taxi squad. You want them to produce for you, and you want them to produce for you this year. Izzy's not producing for you this year. Even if he has a breakout game, let somebody else go pick him up off the taxi squad or off the waiver wire. There's no reason to roster him. Right now, he's fourth or fifth on the depth chart. I think it's fourth, but it's fourth or fifth.
I think the only right now he's probably fifth.
The only other person that's below right now
they're probably less likely to cut him than they are to cut Michael Carter or cut Zonovan Knight. So he'll
right.
I think, inevitably become the fourth guy, but I don't think he has the upside to raise above that.
So my first trash is off your roster. Go ahead and get Izzy off your roster, no matter what you spent for him in the rookie draft, even if it was a late second, early third. Take him off your roster. He's just clogging it up right now with that Jets running back room. No reason to have him on there.
I was going to say there's no reason to have taken him in the late second.
Yeah.
Pre-NFL draft, maybe I could have got that. There was a lot of hype for him, but yeah.
Yeah, depending on how your board looked, he could have gone late second with the running backs coming off the board early. If it was a one quarterback league.
But that's the problem, is by taking that early, you just bypassed Evan Hull completely, and that was the big flaw in the system.
Well, yeah. Listen, you can't blame them for that, because Evan Hall's sitting there, gets drafted by the Colts, and they've got 4 other running backs in front of Evan Hall, and now they only got they don't have anybody in front of Evan Hall now.
They have Kenyon Drake. Oh wait, they don't. He's not ahead of Evan Hull.
Let's backtrack that.
It's funny. Just as a joke, like, the Colts are collecting all of my favorite running backs, because obviously JT is amazing. The 2021 rookie running back class, Deion Jackson had my second highest film grade. Najee Harris was the only one ahead of him. And so I've been a huge Deion Jackson fan the whole time. He's evidenced by a couple weeks ago, we talked about our most rostered players. He might have been my most rostered running back in Dynasty. I love Kenyon Drake. I remember drafting him in a rookie draft way back when. And I've been a fan of him ever since. I even liked Zach Moss a little bit. But,
yeah, I like
that was the mistake, I think.
I like Zach Moss when he was in Buffalo. That was a weird trade altogether, him going over to Indy last year. That was weird to me, and I just
didn't like break it for him.
Well,
hey,
go.
You got a broken bone.
Yeah,
we're on it tonight.
But just leads me to talk about these Jets running backs. My stash was actually Michael Carter. And I think, to a certain extent, Jay and I were talking about this before, but Zonovan Knight might also apply to this, in that one of those two is probably going to get released. And I know, Jay, you were kind of saying, especially if Zonovan Knight gets released, you're going to go pick him up with the thought that he's probably good enough to land somewhere else. It's tough to think of teams needing running backs, because all we hear about is that none of them want any. But if there is a team that needs a running back out there, Zonovan Knight could fit real well. I think Michael Carter applies the same thing, especially if, it looks like Hall's coming back. Maybe they hold him out for a few weeks. Does whoever is that, at that point, the backup running back behind Dalvin Cook, do they still get enough run that they're maybe not worth starting, but maybe worth starting? So I think at least holding Michael Carter and Zonovan Knight to see. Those would be two guys that I'd consider as stashes. But yeah, now we'll actually feel a little rude to have the guests go last. But Eric, do you have a stash or trash you'd like to start with?
Yeah, so I actually had Izzy Abonaconda as a trash as well. So we won't belabor that point, right? Like,
well, Eric, you have him as a trash. Is there anything other than what I said that you would add to it on why he should be a trash?
No, it's absolutely that, right? Like, rookie running backs that are behind an either established starter or a clearly more talented, in Abonaconda's case, 2 clearly more talented players in today's day and age, at least until we get through the next CBA, are kind of worthless, right? Because, like, running backs don't get to a second contract in the NFL anymore. right? So if he's going to burn any of his productive years sitting on a bench behind even one player, like it's just going to eat up roster space, right? So for me, like we talk a lot about 3-year windows in the dynasty context. Rookie running backs are the epitome of that, right? Like draft them, get them into your lineup, and plan on not having them in 3 years, because that by the time that 4th year comes around, kind of like Jonathan Taylor is experiencing himself with those Indianapolis Colts, you no longer have any leverage, right? Like everyone knows that this chariot is about to turn into a pumpkin, and you will get pennies on the dollar for him at best, right? So, Izzy Abanikanda falls into that category for me. To a similar extent, so does Zach Charbonnet, 2 players that I loved drafting before the actual NFL draft. But we're talking about running backs getting 3, maybe 4 years of opportunity. If they're not on the field for any of those years, you're not doing yourself a favor by holding them in Dynasty. So very similar logic overall. But those were the players that I had outlined as my trashers.
Treasure.
Not, I guess don't bring up the Atlanta Thrashers to Jay. Sorry about that.
You mean the what is it? Oh golly, where'd they move to?
Well, they're Winnipeg.
Winnipeg. That's
the team that probably never should have moved to become the Arizona Coyotes in the first place. Imagine that. Oops. Oh well.
They became the Jets, right?
Yeah. Oh look, a franchise called the Jets that doesn't know how to run properly. Oh no.
Imagine that.
Hey, back to full circle on the Jets. But all to say, like with Abanikanda, 4 years of his rookie contract, that last year, that's going to be a potentially 5th-year option for Breece Hall, or they just franchise tag him. Like, there's probably no point in Abanikanda's rookie contract is Breece Hall not going to be on that roster. That's the scary thing for me. Where
and I don't want to keep beating a dead horse, but if you look at what he did over his first, his 3 years in college, I mean, it was 38 total receptions. So in a PPR league, it's not great. It's not great, Bob, as they say. 6, 13, and 11 games. Rushing attempts, absolutely increased every year. Last year, 1,431 yards, 21 total touchdowns. But the receiving for a PPR is just not there, right? It's not. And most leagues right now, especially dynasty leagues, are a PPR league or a half PPR. We're not looking to get 146 yards for a season and 21 receptions. It just doesn't. Or I'm sorry, 12 receptions for the year. That's not how it. And then he's 4th on the depth chart, 5th on the depth chart. So that's where I am at with Izzy. I loved him as a player coming out. He just had got a horrible landing spot, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I've actually avoided him. I don't think I have any shares, dynasty or redraft. So I was just taking Evan Hull every time, right? Of course.
I mean, if you believe that Breece Hall was coming back at all this year when they drafted Izzy, you just kind of faded Izzy anyway.
Yeah, 5th round pick, bad landing spot. It just, for sure. I saw even before that potential writing on the wall. Like, is Jonathan Taylor not on this team next year? What does that mean for Evan Hull's potential opportunity? I just love the talent. So it was an easy pick for me. Anytime he was there at the back end of the 3rd, and I wasn't taking Eric Gray, wasn't taking Abanikanda, wasn't taking Zach Evans. Like, ignore all those guys. Just give me Evan Hull. I think I've got 0 shares of all those other guys, of course. But Eric, do you have a stash that you'd like to share?
Yeah, it's actually someone that I am actively stashing and arguably overexposed to, and that's my guy Terrace Marshall. Part of that high-powered LSU offense from a few years ago. Athleticism score is right up there with some of the better prospects that we've seen in recent memory. But unfortunately for him, he fell into the lap of maybe the worst version of the Carolina Panthers that we've seen in a few years, right? So, certainly not getting much opportunity on the fields in his rookie or sophomore years. Arguably wasn't getting the opportunity to develop as an NFL player quite as much as other highly regarded rookie receivers. And this has led him largely to kind of go in the tank in terms of his ownership. So, really, even prior to, the full on reboot that we've seen in Carolina this year, I've just been out there stacking up Terrace Marshall shares on the cheap. So I am very much so pot committed with him. I think that there's going to be a point where we see him and Mingo really push for, for wide receiver roles on this team as soon as this year, right? And the presence of Mingo itself is still keeping Marshall's price pretty well depressed, right? So if you are a glutton for punishment, you want to join me in the glory that is Terrace Marshall ownership, you can still go get him for a pretty reasonable price.
I was gonna say he was a second round pick in rookie drafts, I think, a lot of the times when he came out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely not having to probably spend a second to buy him right now. So
no, you are not.
Disappointment discount.
Yeah, I mean, look, you gotta buy the dip. At least that is how my oversaturated Marshall portfolio has been born, right? I still think that there's enough talent there to where when the opportunity arrives, there's a decent chance of you getting good value on that.
Hey, when you got the chips on the table, you just gotta put them in the dip.
Yeah.
I don't know if Gator's chomping up that joke or not.
I was waiting for you to somehow find out if you could get proswithjoes.com in there.
On the ball, Gator.
But
I love it.
Since you couldn't, I did.
No, I didn't. I failed completely. Thank God you're here. Or thank proswithjoescharity.com. I said the name wrong.
Hey.
Thank God Gator's here.
It is proswithjoes.com. Sponsored tonight, right here on the Gambit. By the way, if you didn't hear it, Eric dropped a tidbit on how you can get in only on the Gambit on Sunday. What are you doing Sunday at 11:59:59, right? That's what the last.
So
you might want to go off a few minutes before then to make sure you got everything in, though.
Right, Sunday at 11:59:59 is when fundraising closes. If you go to our donation page on Sunday morning, the fundraisers that are listed at the top are the ones that have the fewest donations. So I know that we're all big math fans around here. Statistically, your likelihood of winning your way in will be the greatest by donating to those charities listed up top, and that will be reshuffled and in place as of Sunday morning.
Yeah, I was told there was no math involved. So Sunday morning, just go to the website. What website is that?
Proswithjoes.com.
That's the one. But Eric is going to sit here. He's going to lose power. He's going to lose internet. Wake up Sunday afternoon and go, what in the hell happened? Holy crap. Oh, my God. I've got so much more work to do. Hopefully that's the goal, right?
Good problem to have, right?
That's a good problem to have. Yep.
I'm sure it'll make you very happy if you log into proswithjoes.com and see a bunch of donations made to proswithjoes.com.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Gator, do you want to share your stash?
You want me to get a stash for you? I will give you one, and I will go exactly opposite of what I just said about Izzy Anaconda. And I will tell you, Sean Tucker is somebody you should be stashing right now. Somebody, if he didn't have a health issue coming out of college, would have been drafted probably in the late third, if not before, by another team. Ends up going as a UDFA as of today in Tampa. He is now splitting first team reps with Rachaad White. If you have not already got him on your team, go pick him up right now if he is available. You look at what he did in college in 2020 to 2022, 626, 1496, and then last year, 1,060 as far as his yardage. But his usage is phenomenal. 137 attempts, 246 attempts, only 200 attempts last year. He's also receiving the ball. And there's where the big catch is he receives the ball out of the backfield. 7 in his freshman year, 20, and then 36 his last year. He is an absolute monster. And if it wasn't for his health, and now he's 100% clear, he would have been drafted. And Tampa, I think, absolutely got lucky being able to get a hold of him. The reason I think he's a stash, when I said earlier that Izzy is not, is because he's number 2 minimum on the depth chart, which he probably will be number 2. Rachaad White will be number 1, but he's number 2. He's going to get opportunity, but he's only got 4 years as his contract on, or 3 years on a UDFA contract. Tampa's going to be finding out what they have. It's a full rebuild. They're going to be throwing the ball, or they're going to be handing the ball off. They're not going to be throwing it as much as they have in the past with Tom Brady. It is going to be a true 2-man backfield, and it's going to be Rachaad White, Sean Tucker. He's definitely somebody that you could have in a flex position if you had to, but he's definitely worth a stash, in my opinion.
Talking Tucker. Totally.
Yes. Yes.
Time?
Is he Canadian too?
Sorry, I didn't catch it.
Is he Canadian too? Let me just double check. I want to see. I'm gonna make sure.
Chase Brown, that was the Canadian.
I know Chase Brown is, but is Sean Tucker Canadian as well?
I do not believe he is. No.
Okay, I'll have to look it up, but I thought he was. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh, Eric, did you want to mention anything about Sean Tucker?
Yeah, I think the distinction that Jay made is really the point to underscore here, right? Like Tucker isn't nearly as far down the depth chart as someone like Izzy Abanikanda, but also the circumstance of this year's and the coming years Tampa Bay Buccaneers is categorically the opposite of the New York Jets, right? Like this is a Buccaneers team that is heading deeply into player evaluation mode, right? Obviously, I don't expect the same rookie season impact as Dameon Pierce, but this was a lot of my argument for Dameon Pierce last year, right? These teams that are 100% in the tank, these teams that have expended draft capital to bring in a young player, they need to know relatively quickly if they have something that they can build off of with that young player, right? So I tend to agree that we're going to see Rachaad White, get the starting role, so to speak, immediately. And over the course of the season, I mean, obviously, we're not going to see White take on a 400 touch type of workload over the course of the year in Tampa Bay. So, we're going to see him on the field at some point over the course of this coming season. And whenever they decide to, fold up their tents and really set their focus on the upcoming draft, I think that workload will increase. So while he is a rookie runner that is, sitting behind someone else in the depth chart, it couldn't be a more different situation than the one that we played out with Abanikanda.
And I mean, if Caleb Williams is the one in the backfield handing off the ball to Sean Tucker and Rachaad White, that's probably going to up their values a little bit, I think.
I'd say so, yeah.
And I just look it up. Sean Tucker is from Maryland. Now, Gator, I think I know why you said what you said, because he played for Syracuse, and Syracuse, there tends to be a lot of Canadians that go to Syracuse. Proximity to Canada, especially French Canadians, because it is so close to Quebec. The first Canadian drafted this year in the draft was Matthew Bergeron, who was an offensive lineman. Looks like he's going to be starting, or has a chance to start this year for the Falcons. Canadian. That's from Syracuse. So,
yeah, I know we had a conversation in the past about it, and it was Chase Brown that we talked about, but I thought there was a chance. I mean, Maryland, that's not too far from Canada. This probably was close.
I feel like Syracuse is closer though.
Well, I mean, maybe he was feeling like I need to be up there.
Yeah, for sure.
What is so I just wanted to compare this real quick, because I was looking at stats with Rachaad White, and here's what scares me with Rachaad White. As much as I love Rachaad White being in the third round, he's 24 already. Sean Tucker probably should have been a third rounder, is only 21. Right. And then now what do we looked at? What is Izzy? We're going back to the Jets, not to keep rehashing it, but what's the age difference between Izzy and Breece Hall and I know Carter's a little bit older, but there's just something else to keep in mind as you're sitting there. Do I cut this guy? Do I taxi squad this guy? Do I hold a roster spot for this guy? Age should come into it, but that should be like the last thing. But that would be something that I would add to that is when you're looking at it, Tucker is only 21 years old, and he still looks like a freaking man. He's a grown ass man.
And to what you were saying earlier about the fact that it's a 3-year contract as an undrafted free agent, that means like that second contract for him, we're still probably in some good fantasy seasons for us. So his value may not. If anything, we might even prefer that he leaves Tampa if they don't get Caleb Williams. Let's say they suck, but like not suck enough to do that.
Yeah, they don't get. They only suck enough to get like Drake May or somebody. Nobody.
Yeah. Well, or even that they can't get either, then they're stuck at quarterback purgatory kind of thing. And once maybe they trade for Jordan Love once the Packers sign Nathan Rourke. Who knows?
Ooh.
Like whatever that situation ends up being, you might almost prefer that after those 3 years in Tampa that Tucker could sign anywhere, and that might be like a value increase after year 3 for him as well.
What do you have for your stash?
Well, my stash was Michael Carter.
Okay.
What
is your trash?
So I've got 2 technically. They're teammates, wide receivers, and one of the things the basis I used for this was again looking at the 3 or 4 leagues I have cut downs for, and I kind of went through, okay, what are my potential cut downs, and what are some decisions I'm going to be making? I thought that's where I won't fully declare both these players as trash, but I think it may be safe to consider cutting them if you need the room. And so Chicago Bears wide receivers, Darnell Mooney and Chase Claypool. I've got a league with both, and I don't know. I'm potentially considering hanging on to both, but I am also considering cutting at least one of them. So I guess my concerns are just basic volume. DJ Moore is probably going to command his usual share of targets. He's earned that through his career. So I don't know. I could see either Claypool or Mooney severely disappointing. I can also see either one having a great season. So I'm not sure which one will be that disappointment, or if they both just eat into each other's production. So,
well, let me ask this question real quick, and I'm going to ask this to Eric. So, my personal opinion, I hate that. I hate that for your choices, because I'm out on Claypool, been out on Claypool. But Mooney, I'm actually in on. I want to buy Mooney. So, Eric, are you in on Mooney, number one, or Claypool, either one? And if so, somebody is going to offer to trade you Mooney. What are you offering to get Mooney for?
So I am starting to feel a little bit scared about how much you and I are in lockstep tonight, Jay. So right next to Terrace Marshall.
What's that donation site that I need to donate so you and I can be on the same team?
Yeah. Well, the bad news is I don't think you and I can ever do a show with just the two of us, because we'd be just agreeing all the time. It would be super boring. Yeah. So
I'm glad I'm here.
Right next to Terrace Marshall as my stash is Darnell Mooney. And while he's certainly going to see a volume hit now that DJ Moore's in town, I also think that his profile is much more suited to being a viable wide receiver too, right? You go back to 2021, where he was the number 2 to Allen Robinson on that team, saw 140 targets, got over 1,000 receiving yards, had a career high in yards per reception at 13 yards per flat, right? So I think that he's not the most athletic guy in the league, and now certainly not on the Bears. And having to deal with another team's best corner put him in a position to lose when we saw him there last year, right? Now that he's back on that, second man up in the secondary, I think we could see him get relatively close to that, near 1,000-yard peak from a few years ago. So I agree with Kyle that we should be looking to cut bait in the Chicago Bears wide receiver room. But like Jay said, for me, it's Claypool and not Mooney.
I do also think there might be a scenario where both hit and Cole Kmet's the guy that really suffers. just like Fields becomes so accustomed with how good DJ Moore is doing, he just goes to the outside so much that he ends up ignoring the tight end and not throwing much to that or to the running backs.
Well, specifically in the case of Claypool, right? Like we don't really have much of a representative sample to point to in his tenure in Chicago. You go back to his Steeler days, and they kind of used him like a big slot, like kind of like a tight end, right? So I think the war of attrition between Cole Kmet and Chase Claypool is a really interesting one to watch. But ultimately, I mean, I've kind of been out on Claypool from the get-go. So moving from a relatively ineffective run-heavy offense to a arguably more ineffective, more run-heavy offense didn't exactly wet my beak when that deal went down last year.
Got a big old second rounder. They're going to Pittsburgh for
yeah.
Chase.
And they got a first round corner essentially.
Yes.
Yeah. God bless them. However, they pulled that off.
It'd be funny if the Bears still have more wins than the Steelers this year, though.
Yeah, I don't know if that's.
I don't know if that's out of the range of possibility. I think.
Ooh, we disagree, Eric. We finally.
There we go. Finally, yes.
Disagree.
All I had to do is talk about the Bears winning. Of course, that makes people disagree.
Yeah, right.
Well, you brought up Pittsburgh. I'm pretty high on Pickett this year, or Pickens rather, getting a second year in that offense. I think there's a lot of growth that can be had with the upgrades that they've made on offensive line. With a healthy Najee Harris, with a you look back and you sit there and go, how in the hell did Johnson not get in the end zone last year?
Kenny Pickett, ladies and gentlemen.
No,
he threw 7 touchdown passes last year.
Stop it. It's not Kenny.
Well, he did. He only threw 7 touchdown passes last year.
Okay, but it's not his fault.
He
was 12 games, but
it's not his fault. He's got a defensive line in his face because of a horrible offensive line. It's not his fault.
So if we want to carry Kenny Pickett's water, I guess it's Ken now officially. He's a man. I will always be.
Say that.
I think so. Yeah. I'm always out here to pour cold water on Steelers fans' hopes and dreams. But the real thing, if you want to assign blame to anyone associated with the Steelers from last year, is Matt Canada, right? I was hoping that we were going to see the purge of the horrific offensive coordinator in the AFC North completed, right? We finally rid ourselves of Greg Roman in Baltimore, and there were talks that Canada's seat was incredibly hot. Fortunately, they retained him. So, I mean, as long as he's there, I don't think we're going to see really much out of this Steelers offense. To be fair, in the preseason, they have trotted out some more like modern concepts. So if that trend holds, then with that high tide raises the rest of the Steelers ships. But I mean, Matt Canada has shown us routinely that he likes to run these vanilla defenses or vanilla offenses, I should say. That Pickens is going to be running go routes all day long. Like,
well, except for that one year when he was the OC in LSU. That's the only year that he had at least a mind of an offensive coordinator. Now, I'm not saying
Chase Jefferson, go run routes. Burrow, throw to him.
No.
We're better than everyone that we're facing.
Right. Well, if
by a wide margin.
Look at the concepts that they were running. It was actually a pretty good wide receiver, route running concepts. It was nice. That's one I hadn't thought about was the fact that Canada was still there because, again, his seat was allegedly on fire last year. It wasn't even hot. It was on fire.
The country of Canada is right now.
Yes. Yeah. The one thing I will say, though, is when you look at, rookie quarterbacks compared to their second year, it's usually about a year and a half. Again, going back to the Bears, look at what Fields did last year in about game 6, 7, somewhere in that range, where he was like, oh, shit, I got nobody. I'm going to have to do this on my own. And then all of a sudden, boom. Look at Trevor Lawrence in his second year. The second year quarterback is where that's when you want to start. Okay, If you can hold him and stash him, cool. But the second year quarterback is where you're going to gain the value, and you just need a little bit of a nice game, a good game to a great game, and there's where you're going to gain your value of where you drafted him. Because if you draft him in the second round, you could turn that into a first round pick real quick. All you need Kenny Pickett to do is to throw 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns in a game, throw for 300 yards, and never have another good game. But you sell him that the day after that. I just think there's going to be something in Pittsburgh this year. I'm not saying they're winning the AFC North. By no means am I saying that. I think there's 2 other teams that will have something up their sleeve for them. But I just can't see where they're going to be completely out of it either, even with Matt Canada as the OC.
Tomlin always finds a way, no matter how bad the roster is. They'll finish 500, right?
Jesus God Almighty! How does that's a head coach that you just cannot not like?
Well, it's because he never blinks, right? I think that's the key to all of this. Just stop blinking, and you'll at least go 500.
Well, that and fool everybody in the world to think that you're going to be, go talk to the number 1 quarterback coming out in the class by the porta potties, or his family by the porta potties down in Mobile, like he did with Malik Willis, and everybody flipped the fuck out. At least the fantasy football world flipped the fuck out. It's like, oh my God, he's going Malik Willis to Pittsburgh. And then they turn around.
Of course, no one flipped the fuck out when Malik Willis didn't go in the first or second rounds, of course. Everyone was calm and no one panicked then.
Everybody was panicking. What are you talking about, Kyle? Including you.
I was lucky I just didn't draft any shares of him. Perfect. Avoid all the quarterbacks.
You got any more trashes or stashes, Kyle?
I was going to say that if you talk about quarterbacks in that class, we can talk about Matt Corral and how he shouldn't be rostered. Kyle Trask is
whoa, simmer down. You see this flag right there? Won't you talk about Kyle Trask?
Well, let's talk about it.
Kyle.
What if he was going to say something good?
Well, I was going to say, what if Carson Wentz ends up in Tampa? What does that say about Kyle Trask? That they have legit absolute no faith. They never want to see him touch the football.
I know I've got capabilities of booting. I know I've got capabilities of booting people. Hang on 1 second.
I have a certain set of skills. Oh, he booted himself. I thought he was going to kick you out.
Nope, I didn't do it. That was 100%. That was
me. Who's in control here? Not Kyle Trask. If Kyle Center is.
What?
Hey,
how you doing?
I guess I'm Kyle Trask. Never mind.
No, I said this a couple weeks ago. I really, as a Tampa fan, I would have loved to seen Tampa come out and go, Kyle Trask is going to start. Let's see what we have.
So you can get Caleb Williams?
Well, look, not even for that. If we drafted him in the second round, let's find out what we have. This kid has been a backup for his whole life in high school, in college, and he's done nothing but win when he gets the opportunity. I'm not saying he's going to be a winner in the NFL, by no means, but we don't know. He's had a total of 60 minutes total played in the NFL. And it was in trash
9 pass attempts is what he had.
Yeah, and it was completely.
I'm surprised he even had that, to be honest. I thought he had 0.
Yeah, it was all in trash time. So
in Trask time?
No, in trash, not Trask, but trash with third stringers on the field. So he couldn't get true reads. He couldn't, you throw on a ball, you're playing, a first team defense with third string wide receivers. You're not going to get any kind of information from that.
But do you get, I'll quote again from that same draft class, Kellen Mond, what Mike Zimmer said, right? I don't need to see him play a game. I've seen him in practice every day.
Well, but listen, what the kid put on film and what he's put on the field when he had the opportunity in both high school and college was completely different than what we've seen in the pros. He's not only done it, 3 years in the pros, he sat behind one of the, if not the greatest of all time If he didn't learn something, you'll know it in the first 3 weeks.
Blaine Gabbert.
But they,
Is that
again,
Blaine Gabbert?
they might already know that he didn't learn anything, but they don't even have to wait 3 weeks, right? That's to a certain extent, that's almost the message I get from Tampa. Like, why would they bring in Baker Mayfield if they had any faith at all?
Because he's cheap. You're paying him $4 million.
True. I mean, yeah, you need a backup. You're right. You need a backup. Why have Baker be the starter the whole way through training camp up to now if you had any faith in?
Honestly, I don't know that either one of them were considered starter because it's come out multiple.
True, you're right. Yeah,
they were like back and forth. They were both running with the ones. The problem I have is that and I could have missed 1 or 2 times, but Kyle Trask never played with the ones in a game, only in on practice. And we talking about practice. Practice
is important because that's all he's got so far is practice, though.
Cool. That is true.
I actually tend to think that we'll see Kyle Trask start more games for the Bucs than Baker Mayfield does. Maybe over the course of the year, it's by merit, but if nothing else, like we talked about earlier, I think the Bucs are in talent evaluation mode. It still bears the question that you pose, Kyle, which is, why did they bring in Baker Mayfield? Why did they name him the starter right up front? And I think that it underscores a reality that I've talked about before, which is a lot of what NFL front offices and NFL coaching staff does is from a position of trying to save and maintain their jobs, right? Yep. And if they come out and say this unknown quantity who's been a backup everywhere that he's played and he's only seen 60 minutes of NFL playing time is our starter, even though we all know that they are tanking in this upcoming season, it too clearly states, shouts it from the mountaintop that they are probably looking to the future year. And, GMs and coaches, they operate from a place of scarcity, right? They at least have to, for the early part of the season, feign an effort that we think we can win games with Baker Mayfield and, we're going to dink and dunk and, win 17-14 or whatever it might be. But ultimately, at some point midway through the season, reality will set in. It will be more socially acceptable for them to start turning the page to next year. And that's where I think we see Trask kind of take it over down the stretch run.
Yeah, the other side of that coin is they have him under contract for this year and next year, whereas they only have Baker under contract for this year. You look at what they're paying him, and it all leads back to what the money is, I guess. But his cap hit for this year is 1.5. His cap hit for next year is 1.7. So combined, it's less than 3 million, or right at 3 million. Whereas they're paying Baker 4.5. The other side of that coin is you look at what was Baker, a number 7 overall pick, somewhere in that range.
He was the first overall pick.
That's right. He was by the Browns. Yeah. First overall pick compared to I think Kyle Trask was the last pick in the second round.
I just looked it up at 64.
Yeah, 64.
So you're right. It's the second round pick
in 2021. So there's I guess at that point you're sitting there, you're looking at, okay, well, I'm paying this guy. This guy should be. And maybe they were dead even, and that's what it came down to. Maybe they were dead even, and it came down to, well, I'm paying this guy more money.
Maybe you're right. We'll never know in terms of what those. Maybe there'll be a documentary on it someday.
Oh, stop it!
The longer that the writer's strike goes on, the higher the likelihood that there is a documentary about just about anything that's happening.
Can we get that right away? I need that.
That's a great joke to write. Good job, Eric.
I need that to happen sooner than later. I got one more trash for you, if that's all right. Yeah. And I took this approach because we're a Dynasty show. I took it more as, trashing or stashing, the rookies. And I think there's a rookie out there that we have, through drafts have decided that this guy is going to be something, and I just don't think he's going to be. And that's Keyshawn Butte.
I almost thought he was going to say Vaughn.
I thought he was too. I thought we were staying in Tampa.
No.
It also applies to the trash section, I would imagine.
No, we're going to Tampa North, which is, New England. We're going to go there. And here's the reason why I'm looking at Butte as a trash guy. Somebody that we thought of as early as or as late as last year at least his freshman season, we were super high on him. He had an 18.5% target share in his first season. Only 45 targets or only 45 receptions, but he had 735 yards in his freshman year. And then it just went downhill from there. Of course, last year with all the drama with Brian Kelly coming over, Chip Kelly coming over, rather, whatever his name is, Brian Kelly from Notre Dame. And that player, all that mess comes out. And then coming in overweight, messing around. I'm looking at him in 3 years in college, 132 receptions. When you're sitting there looking at other players like Josh Downs, who had 101 receptions in 1 year, there is no reason for a Keyshawn Boutte to be taking up a roster spot on your roster. As horrible as that team is, or is what we think it's going to be in that division, it's not going to be great. And he's just holding up a roster spot. There's other wide receivers that I would rather have. Even if Boutte gets you somewhere in that mid wide receiver 3 range, there's other wide receivers I would rather roster.
Heck, I would just say go with the running back, a random running back that can get.
Right, but even lesser wide receivers on a dynasty roster, I would rather taxi squad them than hold on to a Keyshawn Boutte. Like I said, his target share his freshman year was 18.5% and went to 12 and then 15 last year. He's not a separator. He's not getting the opportunity. That's somebody that I am completely out on. Thoughts?
I have zero shares, 0 cares. I love it with those players. I've never drafted them. Not going to draft any of them. I don't care how they do.
Yeah, I'm in a pretty similar sort of headspace, right? I know we talked earlier about a not so athletic guy in Darnell Mooney. Keyshawn Boutte kind of fits that mold as well, right? There's really nothing about his measurables that jump off the page, and his on-field production at LSU kind of, underscored that, right? Year over year, it seems like he's getting, less and less involved. And if nothing else, I mean, he's tied to a, very run-heavy offense with a not so exciting quarterback for the foreseeable future. There's not really a whole lot to put wind in your sails about with Boutte.
So yeah, sad party for anyone who had Keyshawn Boutte, especially like in dynasty leagues. Because like I just go back to a year ago today, August 24th, 2022. You ask someone who are going to be the top 2 or 3 wide receivers in the draft class. Everyone probably says Jackson Smith and Jigba. Seemed like Addison was getting a lot of hype even last year as well. They probably would have gone Keyshawn Boutte as the 3rd guy in this class a year ago, right?
Well, you look back 2 years ago, and we, at least from what I can remember, as an industry, we were sitting there talking about Josh Downs being the number one wide receiver, or number 2 wide receiver, depending on where you had him. And then, for whatever reason, he fell off. I don't know that it wasn't. To me, it wasn't his numbers. His numbers weren't horrible, compared to 2021. Compare his 2021 numbers to his 2022 numbers. They weren't horrible. I mean, 300 less yards receiving, but really, he only had like 6 or 7 less targets in receptions, rather. But when you look at Keyshawn Boutte, you're sitting there going, this dude has. You can see flashes of it, right? But it just doesn't continue. Does that mean, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? You see the flash, you see it in a play or 2 plays, and then all of a sudden he's like ghosting for the rest of the game.
It's such a, as much as like we might look at that depth chart, there's not a lot of talent. There are bodies there. He's going to have to play well to usurp a Juju Smith-Schuster, Devontae Parker, a Kendrick Bourne. If they share initials, that might be his best way of getting on the team, is confusing the coaches to think he's Kendrick Bourne. Hey, KB, let's go. And he just runs out, like acts like he's supposed to be there. If he's supposed to be there, that's Kendrick Bourne, right?
Just steal his jersey and just be like, you know what? I'm on the field.
Born with a different name.
That's funny.
I was gonna say that joke was kind of Boutte, wasn't it?
I do love Eric's suggestion, though. I like, we do need to have a segment now on the Gambit every Thursday night. Stash or Trask?
It'll be the Trasker, where
We call that my homer.
Well, you look at you track him every week. Did he play? Oh no, he didn't.
Give me a short segment then.
0 pass attempts so far this season. His Traskering the pass attempts he gets.
Would be a short segment.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Luke Tasker might end up with more career passing.
Hey, good Lord. Where's that boot button again?
The bootay button?
The bootay button. That's right.
I think we're going to bootay on out of here, though. And everyone should head over to a certain website, goingfor2.com. No, they should go to there, too. We've got Discord in there, rankings, all sorts of great stuff. But especially this weekend, before Sunday, you should head over to proswithjoes.com. So, Eric, I'll let you plug Pros with Joes Charity League one last time.
Yeah, I mean, proswithjoes.com, proswithjoes.com, proswithjoes.com. We'll take the Beetlejuice effect. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're still fundraising through the end of the night on Sunday. Again, 56 pros from around the industry, right? Stefania Bell's back playing again, as is Marcus Grant, as are Dave Kluge and Jeff Bell and Joey Wright and just about everybody from Football Guys. Like I said before, if you consume content in this fantasy space, there's a very high likelihood that someone whose content you consume is playing and representing a charity this year. So get over to proswithjoes.com, give a little, give a lot, whatever you can spare, right? Like we all have a little bit of money laying around. These charities do a really good job of doing a ton of work with a relatively small amount of money. So whatever you can spare, you probably won't miss it. You might feel pretty good about yourself. You'll definitely do some good in the world. You might win your way into the league.
Eric, I got one more question on this. So I retweet every single one that I see, or I guess repost now. It's not retweet anymore. But anyway, I send it back out, and I don't know that I've seen every single one with the dollar amount that they've raised, but there's always the $1,000. What is the ultimate goal for the total dollar amount, or is there an ultimate goal for a total dollar amount when overall with the 46 charities you said there are?
Yeah, it's 49 this year. We've got some overlap. A few people playing for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, a few people playing for the Domestic Violence Hotline, but 49 in total. I mean, quite honestly, it might sound oversimplified. Usually we set out with the goal of trying to raise more than we had in the prior years, but in reality, we've gotten to a point where, even if we don't quite land there, we still raised a fair amount of money. And if nothing else, brought some people together, created a fun experience. Right now, I guess as of about an hour ago, we're creeping up on the $12,000 mark for this year. So definitely happy with that, with a few days left to fundraise. And we do usually see a pretty good push on that last day. Everyone kind of likes to wait and see where those fundraisers sit. So hopefully we will be able to surpass last year's number. But if nothing else, I can say from firsthand that that type of donation in total does a ton of good work.
That's awesome to hear. Again, that's proswithjoes.com. $1 gets you an entry into each. $1 gets you an entry to play with a pro, and every dollar gets you an additional entry.
That's right.
And you can donate as many $1 to as many pros that you want to.
That's always
$49 to go one to each charity, and then
that's right.
Scattershot.
Yeah, it's funny because I keep a very organized, at least in my own head, tracker of all this, and it almost looks like you can see people's like roulette strategies based on how they place their donations. Right? There's some people just covering the entire board. There's some people kind of working larger chunks and thirds. It's fun to kind of pick apart.
That's funny. That's awesome.
Well, I'm gonna go make a model to determine how much money I should spend at each one.
Yeah.
See you back on Sunday. This is fantastic, Eric. I know you do this every year. This is what, the 4th year of Pros with Joes?
Year 4. Yeah.
Yeah. It's such great work. Over the years, how many thousands and tens of thousands of dollars have been raised for all sorts of different charities. It's fantastic what Pros with Joes allows the opportunity and gives the opportunity to some Joes to play with some pros and some Joes to play with some Joeys and all sorts of fun combinations such as that.
And pros to play with pros named Joe. Basically, any variety of pro and Joe that you might be interested in, we probably got you covered.
I mean, last year I played with a dude named Jay. Hey, look, my co-host is named Jay. How you doing, Jay?
But it wasn't me that played.
No, but it was a different Thursday night going for 2 co-hosts. So
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. The going for 2 coaching and player tree is vast. Kyle mentioned going for 2 earlier tonight. If you do that and you want to see some red hot prop picks from 2021, you can search my name on the website and take a walk down memory lane from my time writing over there.
Man, I wrote a 2 QB Superflex draft guide article, and I remember I put on the cover Carson Wentz and Nick Foles, and it was like, that year coming off the Eagles Super Bowl championship, and it was I just found that a funny picture of the 2 of them standing in the same picture. Yeah, that's definitely there in the archives too.
Big time.
Yep.
Who'd have thought Jalen Hurts was coming around?
It's fair.
But yes, so you can follow Eric on Twitter at FantasyNav. You can also follow the Pros with Joes charity at Pros with Joes.
Pros with Joes. We try to keep things simple.
Hey, whatever gets the word out. Anytime we can say the words pros with the word Joes in any combination, we will do so. Especially if there's a .com at the end. We
of course.
seem to love doing that. We're the .com generation, I suppose.
Certainly.
We're pros at the .com, so to say. Okay, I've rambled enough. Gator, do you want to ramble some more?
No, I'm ready to get out of here. We did some trashes. We did some stashes. I want to thank Eric again for joining us tonight. Remember, you can follow Eric at Fantasy Nav. You can follow the Pros with Joes at Pros with Joes. Make sure you go check out the Pros with Joes website at proswithjoes.com. Get the donations in there. Let's get these guys up. Make sure add your donation in. So only $1. Like I said, $1 gets you an entry into each and every single one each and every dollar you donate gets you an entry in. You could donate multiple times. You could donate to multiple different charities. On Sunday at 59 p.m., the donations stop. By 1 a.m., you should be checking your email, just like you do with Scott Fish, and just refresh until you get that email from Eric saying you are in and this is who your teammate is.
Who needs to sleep or work? Just stay home all day refreshing emails.
Yeah, exactly.
He only needs an hour. I mean,
especially if you're a Joe, you're not a pro. You don't have a Joe.
I mean, his name's not Joe. What the hell are we talking about? No. But yeah, so I guess that comes out on Monday. First draft starts on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of next week. So make sure you're over there checking that out. We appreciate Eric coming on and sharing all of that good stuff. You can find me at FantasyJ77. I am done talking. Kyle, take us home. Let's get out of here. Get Eric to sleep because he's got a lot to do this weekend.
Eric's going to be checking proswithjoes.com a lot, and probably the Twitter handle as well, at proswithjoes. I'm at Senator Says, by the way, but don't follow me this week. Go follow the at proswithjoes.
That's right.
And I guess this is the last episode of our Dynasty Gambit off-season edition. Jay, you'll be
back in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Which again, 2 weeks from tonight, there will be NFL football regular season game that actually matters and counts. Right. The points aren't made up. The game is not made up. Well, I mean, someone did make up the game. There's
still a script though. There's still a script for the game, by the way. So in 2 weeks, 7 o'clock, we are changing the times. We're going back to our in-season time, 7 o'clock. We'll have the pregame, Kansas City, Detroit, and we will see you there. Hopefully, we'll get Kyle on. Maybe we'll have him in the chat. Maybe we'll leave Kyle in the chat in a couple weeks. But I know Brian's coming back this year, so me and Brian are going to hit it up. We will have I double-checked today, we will have the Chrome Dome pick of the night. with Brian. So maybe we'll try to get Eric on a little bit. We'll talk a little bit more about the Pros with Joes and how it's going. We'll see. We'll have some special guests on this year. See how it goes.
And anytime, I would love to swing back through.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Jamie, in the chat. Anyone else who's watching, listening, checking out proswithjoes.com, checking out the Going for Two Discord, all sorts of great sources of great information. So again, thank you, Eric. Appreciate this.
Thanks for having me on, guys. This was fun.
And I guess thank you, everyone who's watched every episode so far this off season of the Dynasty Gambit. See you when the season starts.